Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really dynamic topic. How modern relationships have fundamentally shifted in the 21st century. Think about it.
Yeah.
Everything from how we meet people now to what we expect. The influence of social media, changing gender roles, different cultural values sort of colliding.
It really does feel like a completely new landscape out there, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
the whole terrain of human connection just looks radically different than it did, maybe even just 20 years ago?
Totally.
The old rule book, assuming there even was one definite rule book, seems like it's been totally tossed out.
And that's exactly what we're trying to get our heads around today. We've been digging into this guide, actually written for advanced English learners, but honestly, it's packed with insights and vocabulary that are just valuable for anyone interested in how humans connect now.
Right. Super relevant stuff.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to dissect what makes modern relationships tick. Compare them to the old ways, look at technology's huge impact.
Massive impact.
The new words and labels people use, how gender dynamics are evolving, and the fact that cross-cultural relationships are so much more common. We really want to pull out those key insights in the vocabulary so you can feel, well, genuinely clued in on this whole evolution.
Exactly. The idea is to give you those aha moments, so you don't just grasp these huge shifts, but also get comfortable with the language that's kind of sprung up around them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So
Yeah.
when we talk about a modern relationship, what are we actually, talking about? What defines it?
Yeah, good question.
It feels like we sort of know it when we see it, but what are the core bits underneath?
Well, I think what's most striking really is the emphasis on fluidity and flexibility.
Okay.
Unlike, older models, roles in a modern partnership aren't typically set in stone by gender or societal expectations. They're much more negotiated between the individuals.
So less about following a script and more like writing it together as you go.
Pretty much, yeah.
That sounds really empowering, but I wonder, does that constant negotiation bring its own challenges?
It certainly can. I mean, it demands a really high level of open, honest communication.
Right.
And specifically what we often call emotional intelligence.
Okay.
That ability to understand and respond to emotions, yours and your partner's. Without that, negotiation can pretty quickly become conflict.
So it's not just about meeting halfway, it's about really getting each other's emotional world.
Yeah.
That's the foundation.
That's the bedrock, exactly.
If emotional intelligence is so central, what are some practical ways couples actually build that?
Yeah.
Especially when navigating these fluid roles. It sounds like less about big dramatic things and more about the day-to-day interactions.
It absolutely is. Building that emotional intelligence is an ongoing thing, Often it's just through practicing active listening, really hearing each other out, validating feelings, even if you don't agree, and just being clear about your own needs. And another really crucial piece is the value placed on individual autonomy within the partnership.
Autonomy. Great.
It's about keeping a strong sense of who you are as an individual while still being deeply connected, not just like merging into one entity.
So growing alongside each other as
Yeah.
two separate people. I like that.
Yes. And finally, there's just a much wider acceptance and, frankly, visibility of diverse relationship types and structures now.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a huge shift from when things felt much more, singular, monolithic.
And it feels like even our whole approach to finding the one has shifted. I grew up with this almost Disney idea of a soulmate.
Right, destiny.
Yeah, someone sort of predestined for you. Has that changed?
That's a really sharp point. Yes, that whole soulmate concept has definitely evolved. It seems less about some mystical fated pairing now,
Right.
and much more about actively choosing and building a partnership based on deep compatibility, shared values, mutual commitment. Actually, one of our sources put it really well, suggesting it's less about finding the right person and maybe more about becoming the right person.
Interesting flip. So a more active role, less just waiting around for fate.
Exactly. It involves more intentional choice.
Okay.
It's work, absolutely, but ideally, good work. It's a real shift from just waiting for a fated meeting to choosing and nurturing an evolving partnership.
Okay, so maybe let's contrast that with the past a bit. When we think about traditional relationship views, what really stands out compared to today? Stories from, say, our grandparents' time often sound like they're from another planet.
They really do sometimes. Traditionally, marriage was often, rooted in social and economic necessity, very practical concerns.
Right.
And gender roles were super clearly defined. Husband's the provider, wife's the homemaker. That was pretty much the default script.
The classic setup, yeah, you saw it everywhere.
Right.
And divorce, that was a huge taboo, right?
Right.
Often really difficult legally and socially.
Absolutely. And even courtship, how people got together, followed these pretty rigid, often public rules, sometimes needing family approval, specific steps.
Formal introductions, that kind of thing.
Exactly. You just had to follow the process. Now, contrast that with today. The main driver seems to have shifted much more towards emotional compatibility and personal fulfillment. What feels right for the people actually in it.
And we see such a wider range of family structures now, don't we?
Oh, definitely.
Blended families, single parents, choosing that path, couples just living together, cohabiting is huge now.
Massive, yeah.
And delaying marriage or deciding not to marry at all is far more common and socially accepted. Barely raises an eyebrow anymore.
Not really. And crucially, modern relationships are just much more inclusive. They embrace diverse sexual orientations, gender identities. That's a truly massive change in societal norms.
Okay, let's pull technology into this.
Yeah.
Because you really can't talk about modern relationships without getting into online dating apps, all that stuff. It's had a, well, explosive impact, hasn't it?
Undeniably. For better and, well, sometimes definitely for worse.
Yeah.
What's truly transformative is just how online platforms have exponentially broadened the sheer possibility of connection.
Right.
They've basically just dismantled geographical limits. People with shared niche interests, specific values, people who might literally never have crossed paths otherwise can now find each other. It's like this giant searchable network.
But this digital world, it comes with its own language, its own phenomena. Let's try and unpack some of those key terms, like swipe culture. We hear that one a lot.
Right. Swipe culture primarily comes from apps like, Tinder, Bumble.
Okay.
It's basically the practice of quickly evaluating potential partners based on very minimal info. A few photos, maybe a short bio.
Super fast judgments.
Exactly. Swipe left for no, swipe right for yes.
Yeah.
Very quick decisions.
And like we saw in the source material, Emily and Liam both talked about how these apps felt like this endless scroll sometimes, forcing them into these rapid-fire judgments. So does this constant quick filtering condition us? Does it make us make snap judgments, move on really fast if someone isn't instantly perfect, maybe based on something pretty superficial?
That's a really profound concern, actually. Research suggests that while those initial judgments are faster, yeah, the actual relationship building after the match often still needs significant patience and deeper interaction. The real aha here might not be that apps make relationships shallow, but that they just shift when the real work starts. The superficial swipe is just the new hello, maybe. But depth still requires that intentionality to bridge the initial quick impression.
That's somewhat reassuring, but it still makes you think about the conditioning effect.
Yeah.
And then there's ghosting, which sounds, well, unpleasant. What's that?
Yeah, unfortunately, ghosting has become pretty common. It's when someone you've been dating, or maybe even someone you're in a more established connection with, just disappears.
Vanishes.
Yeah. They stop all communication abruptly, without any explanation.
So no call, no text, just gone.
Wow. That sounds incredibly confusing and, frankly, hurtful.
Yeah.
Seems like a very modern way to duck difficult conversations.
It can be deeply unsettling, yeah. It leaves the person who's been ghosted feeling dismissed, confused. It really shows how digital communication, while convenient, can sometimes enable a kind of lack of accountability in how we treat each other.
And then there's catfishing. That sounds even more deceptive.
It is. Catfishing is when someone creates a completely fake online identity.
Completely fake.
Yeah, using someone else's photos, making up a life story, a job, everything, all to deceive another person online. Often for emotional manipulation, sometimes even for money.
Yikes. That's a pretty stark reminder that while tech helps us connect, it also opens the door for some really unpleasant behavior. Just because connection is easier to start doesn't mean it's always, quality or authentic.
Precisely. And the sheer volume of choice online that can sometimes create this sense of disposability.
Disposability. Yeah, individuals might feel less invested in nurturing one specific connection when there are seemingly endless other options just to swipe away.
That's a critical point, actually. The paradox isn't just too many choices. It's that this abundance can subtly chip away at the very value we place on nurturing a single connection. It makes that idea of a chosen, evolving partnership even more intentional, maybe even kind of countercultural now.
Given all these shifts, it's maybe no surprise that how we even talk about relationships is changing too. It feels like there's this whole new vocabulary popping up, new labels for connections that don't quite fit the old married, not married boxes.
That's absolutely right. As society shifts and people explore relationships beyond that traditional binary, we need new words, right?
Yeah.
Language has to adapt to capture these nuances. Take situationship.
Okay, I've definitely heard that one around. What's the working definition there? Is it even clear, given it's meant to be ambiguous?
Good point. It's often described as this sort of ambiguous middle ground.
It's usually more involved than just friends, maybe more than purely casual sex, but it hasn't quite reached the stage of a clearly defined, committed partnership, with the labels, the explicit expectations.
So there might be romantic feelings, intimacy, but maybe no boyfriend or girlfriend talk, or perhaps just not yet. That undefined space sounds like it could lead to a lot of unspoken assumptions, or even heartbreak, if the two people secretly have very different ideas about where it's going.
Exactly. It can work for some people, sure, but that lack of clarity is definitely a common source of anxiety or pain for others.
Right. Okay, what about open relationships?
An open relationship, well, like the name suggests, implies openness beyond just the two people in the core relationship. It means both partners have explicitly agreed that it's okay to have other sensual or romantic relationships.
So the key is the agreement. It's not just happening secretly. So the main difference isn't just having other partners, but that explicit ongoing consent and negotiation. What kind of conversations does that require that traditional monogamy often avoids?
It demands an incredibly high level of communication about needs, boundaries, feelings, expectations, sometimes constantly needing to check in.
Wow.
That mutual explicit consent and usually clearly defined boundaries, which can look very different for each couple, that's absolutely crucial. It's a conscious choice to step outside traditional monogamy.
And then there's polyamory. How is that different from an open relationship? I feel like it's broader somehow.
Yes, generally polyamory goes a bit further or maybe focuses differently. It covers the idea and the practice of having multiple loving, intimate relationships simultaneously.
Simultaneously, okay.
And again, crucially, with the full knowledge and consent of everyone involved. It's not solely about sexual freedom, though that can be part of it. It's often more about the potential for multiple deep emotional connections, multiple committed relationships existing at the same time.
It's really fascinating how language is stretching to accommodate all these different ways people connect now. It kind of suggests a greater willingness to question the old assumptions and design relationships that actually fit individuals better.
I think that's a fair way to put it. It's a move towards more intentional relationship design, maybe, rather than just inheriting templates.
Okay.
Now, another area that's seen huge change is gender roles within relationships.
Yeah.
This must tie back to that fluidity we talked about at the start,
That's
right?
definitely.
Yeah.
We're seeing a truly significant shift away from those rigid, historically defined gender roles towards dynamics that are much more egalitarian, equal.
Traditional models were often quite patriarchal, weren't they? Characterized by male dominance, clear power imbalances.
Yeah.
Men often held the primary authority, decision-making power, specific roles expected inside and outside the home.
And the source material really brought this home with that example of Sarah and Mark. Remember, they talked about consciously dividing chores and childcare based on who actually had more capacity that week.
Right.
Not just whose job it was supposed to be based on gender. That's a powerful picture, isn't it?
It really is. In modern relationships, especially those aiming for equality, being egalitarian, the focus is squarely on partnership. Roles and responsibilities are increasingly negotiated based on individual skills, preferences, or simply who has the time and energy.
Right.
Not automatically assigned by gender.
So it's not you do this because you're the man or you handle that because you're the woman. It's really moving towards a partnership based on shared effort, mutual respect. What does that do for the emotional side of things?
Well, it tends to foster a much deeper sense of mutual respect and understanding. When both partners feel equally valued for their contributions, for their individual strengths, it builds a stronger foundation for emotional intimacy. It's about seeing each other as whole people, recognizing unique skills and perspectives, rather than just following outdated scripts about how men and women should be.
Yeah.
It ties back beautifully to that emotional intelligence thing, doesn't it? Allowing partners to truly see and value each other's needs beyond those old gendered boxes.
Okay. Switching gears just a little. Our world feels smaller, more connected all the time. Globalization must be influencing relationships too, surely. Let's talk about cross-cultural relationships. They seem way more common now.
Yeah, this is a really interesting piece of modern love. With travel being easier, online communication everywhere, it's just much more common for people to form serious romantic relationships across national borders, across cultural divides.
Meeting people from totally different backgrounds, leading to, I imagine, really rich, diverse partnerships.
Exactly. And while these relationships can be incredibly enriching, I mean, they broaden your horizons hugely, offer unique perspectives, lead to massive personal growth, they also come with their own very unique set of challenges.
Nadi and Jake from our sources showed this perfectly, didn't they? They talked about the excitement of learning each other's traditions, but also that unexpected friction from different expectations around things like family involvement or even just personal space.
Yeah, exactly.
So beyond the obvious language barrier, what kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, even if both partners speak a common language, say English, subtle nuances, cultural context, even jokes,
Oh yeah, humor can be tricky.
can still get lost in translation sometimes.
Yeah.
Misunderstandings can pop up easily. And beyond just language, you can have deeper cultural differences. Different values, different norms around personal space, expectations about family, socializing, even just daily routines, things that need really careful, conscious navigation. The profound insight here, I think, is that modern love, especially cross-culturally, forces us to confront and maybe even deconstruct our own built-in cultural blueprints for connection. It's not just about understanding their culture, but really looking again at our own normal.
And then there's the purely practical side, right?
Yeah.
The logistics must be enormous sometimes.
Absolutely. Navigating different visa systems, immigration processes, managing long distance, maybe for long stretches,
Right.
deciding where you're actually going to build a life together. These are major hurdles. They require immense patience and a really strong shared commitment.
Wow, that sounds like it takes a huge amount of understanding and compromise.
Yeah.
How do couples manage all that?
It often requires a really high degree of what experts call intercultural communication competence.
Okay, what's that exactly?
It's basically the skill of communicating effectively and respectfully with someone from a different cultural background. Being aware of their communication style, their cultural viewpoints, being adaptable, sensitive to the differences without judging them, it kind of forces you to reevaluate your own deeply ingrained cultural biases, actually.
That makes so much sense. It really highlights how much our own cultural background shapes how we see intimacy, family, everything, doesn't it? It's not just about learning their culture, but maybe understanding your own better in the process.
Absolutely. It's deeply ingrained, yeah. And these relationships often become this powerful crucible for self-discovery and, well, a heightened global awareness.
We've covered a ton of ground here and introduced quite a few newish terms along the way. Before we wrap up, maybe let's quickly recap some of that key vocabulary just to sort of nail those down.
Good idea. Absolutely. Like cohabitation, for instance.
Right.
Simply living together as a couple without being married. Pretty standard now for many.
And emotional intimacy. We mentioned that a few times, that deep connection feeling.
Yes, that sense of closeness, built on mutual trust, openness, and that key word, vulnerability.
Ah, vulnerability. So being willing to be open, emotionally honest.
Exactly. Honest about your true self, your needs, your fears. That willingness is really central to building that deep emotional intimacy we just talked about.
Okay. What about codependency? That one sounds less positive.
Yeah, it's generally seen as an unhealthy pattern. It's where one person becomes excessively emotionally reliant on their partner, often prioritizing the partner's needs and feelings way above their own, sometimes losing themselves in the process. It blurs healthy boundaries, can hinder individual growth, which, as we discussed, really contrasts with that modern emphasis on autonomy within connection.
Definitely not the goal. That's an important distinction. And finally, let's just circle back quickly to compatibility, but like the modern take on it.
Good one. Compatibility today, it's really about the degree to which two people can coexist harmoniously and build a fulfilling life together.
Okay.
It's about having enough shared core values, maybe similar life goals, enough common ground, but also, crucially, the ability to understand and respect the differences
Right.
and to navigate challenges together, support each other's growth.
So not about being identical copies of each other.
Not at all. It's more about being able to understand and respect those differences and find constructive ways to move forward together. It's really about building a life, not just finding a perfect match off the shelf.
This has been a really thorough look at how things have changed. And it was so helpful that our source material didn't just give us definitions, But those little real-life conversation bits we mentioned,
Yeah, the examples.
like Emily and Liam on dating apps, Sarah and Mark figuring out roles, Nadi and Jake with their cross-cultural journey, they really make it concrete.
They absolutely do. Those glimpses show how these trends and this vocabulary actually play out in everyday life. It gives you a tangible sense of how people are really navigating these nuanced modern relationships.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway, the kind of core message about relationships today?
I think the biggest thing is just how dynamic they are. Fluid, constantly changing, not static.
Right.
They're continually being shaped and reshaped by everything we've discussed. These major societal shifts, cultural norms evolving, and especially that monumental influence of technology, it's an ongoing, vibrant evolution.
And understanding these changes in the language around them, it's not just like an academic exercise, is it?
Yeah.
It has real value for all of us trying to navigate this stuff.
Oh, not at all. It truly enhances our ability to understand the incredibly diverse ways people connect today. It fosters empathy, builds cultural intelligence, and it also gives us vital insights into the fundamental human needs we're all trying to meet through relationships. And maybe most importantly, how to communicate those needs better in this new and frankly pretty exciting landscape.
This has been super illuminating, truly. And it brings us to that really interesting final thought from our source material, that quote that seemed to just capture this modern perspective. Relationships are less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right person.
Ah, yes, that one. It really does flip the script, doesn't it? Compared to the old search for the one idea,
Yeah.
it shifts the whole focus away from a kind of passive search for some perhaps non-existent ideal partner and onto the active process of our own personal growth, our self-awareness within the context of relationship.
Puts a focus on us.
Yeah, it puts the onus on us, but in a really empowering way, I think.
So for everyone listening, as you think about everything we've explored today, the flexibility, the crucial communication, the tech impact, the new labels, those cross-cultural dynamics, really chew on that idea. What does it mean for you to become the right person in this modern relationship world? Given everything we know now, what qualities, what understanding, what approach do you want to cultivate to build meaningful, fulfilling connections in this incredibly dynamic landscape?
Definitely something to think about long after this deep dive is over.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.